Branislava Sušnik was born on the 28th of March, 1920 in Medvoda. She went to primary school and classical gymnasium school in Ljubljana. She enrolled in university, where she graduated in prehistory and history. At the same time, she studied ethnohistory and Uralo-Baltic linguistics in Vienna. She finished her studies with a PhD in ethnohistory and Uralo-Althaic linguistics under the legendary anthropologist Professor Wilhelm Schmidt, who opened the door to anthropology for her, culturological comparativistic, as she calls it. From 1942 to 1943, she began studying the culture and languages of Asia Minor at the Vatican Biblical Institute in Rome. Under the renowned Professor Furlani, she graduated in the cuneiform script of Cappadocia, which dates to around 3000 AD. In addition, she attended lectures on Roman and early Christian archaeology and Sumero-Babylonian history and archaeology.
I left Europe as a young woman. I studied in the capital of the country in which I was born, it is in Slovenia, Yugoslavia, in the city of Ljubljana. I also studied in Rome and Vienna. Unfortunately, the war started, and after the war, communism was introduced in my homeland. Like many other opponents of communism who fled the country, I emigrated. Then I met Dr. Barbero. I was asked if I would be willing to set up a museum. I knew it was in Paraguay. I told him that there are many groups of Indians that I could study and do my research on. I was also told that everything was very close. So I came here 31.5 years ago. I live and work here. Basically, I feel at home here. The museum gives a general overview of the material culture of the Indian groups in Chaco and eastern Paraguay, the Chaqueños and Guarani Indians. The objects originate from the time when these tribes lived their original Paleolithic and Neolithic culture, at least partly. Today they are adjusted to the new cultural environment. Their handicrafts have been passed from generation to generation. Young Indians learned it from older ones, most of all because of tourism. The museums hold artifacts of the original Indian culture before it met with civilization. Today, the Chaqueños are no longer hunters. Their way of life and their handicrafts have changed. They buy their pots, since they have no time to make them.
Between 1956 and 1958, Branka Sušnik organized several expeditions to remote Indian tribes. It has to be emphasized that her scientific explorations were in such remote areas that she even made a will, in which she left all the material and data that she had collected and all her work to the museum. Branka Sušnik wrote on a small piece of paper in her office that the highest title she had received was the one given to her by her friends. They named her La Doctora of the Chiripa tribe, with pants and potatoes. She always took flour, salt, potatoes, and tobacco with her on the expeditions. And in exchange, she got verbs, nouns, adjectives, bulbs, fish, fruit, and blissful peace.
She was evidently very welcome. An important shaman always helped her. With the Chamacoco, it was Aita, whom she remembered with love and sadness. When she returned in 1979, she wrote a book called Chamacoco, Cultural Exchange, about the shaman Aita, who had no longer been in favor of her because he had converted to the new religion of Christian evangelists. She certainly did not seem feminine enough to them. She was like a man, determined and loud. all of this won respect from the others. When she was with the Aniversario people, who were probably in conflict with other groups, they said that they would protect her because she spoke their language. In the Guarani language, they called her Kunya Kumbai. She told me they had called her Kunya Kumbai, which means woman, man. An initiation ritual was performed for her with the Chiripa people and the Ava Guarani. She was also given an Indian name, a kind of flower.
Immediately after the first expeditions, 1956 to 1958, she gave several lectures on secret societies among the primitive people, the culture of the Chamakoko tribe, and their social status, mythology, and shamanism. Among the Lengua Mascoi Indians, any man can become a shaman after initiation, but he has to have the natural psychological characteristics on which the power of visionary and trance depends. These powers are essential for communicating with supernatural powers. The beginner has to fast alone in the wilderness for a long time. He is not allowed to drink. He can eat only snakes, lizards, insects, and other vermin, and raw birds, so that he can learn how to whistle and thus communicate with souls.
Desde el año 56 que fue a los Chamacocos.
We acquired a lot of varied ethnographic material from 1956, when she visited the Chamakoko Indians, and made some archaeological excavations in Upper Paraguay. Weapons, musical instruments, wicker bags, hammocks, hunting whistles, gourds, wood figures, etc. All the objects were meticulously catalogued. When she returned, she accurately described the objects, wrote a date and origin, and how she obtained it. She brought archaeological material from her field work.
Esta es la parte de urnas funerarias de los guaraníes que antes de la llegada de
These are Guarani urns. Before the Spanish arrived, important people from their community were buried in urns. When a person died, they put him in a fetal position in a baked clay vessel. The vessel was then covered. You can see the covers over there. The urn was then buried. Or they wrapped the corpse in a hammock and took it to the forest. They waited for the flesh to disintegrate, and then they picked up the bones, put them in the urn, and buried them. It looks like this is linked to a belief in the reincarnation of souls. She took most of the photos. If she is in a photo, she posed. She used the self-timer and ran in front of the camera. Her motto was to go among the Indians, far from civilization.
The land of Guarani and other tribes in South America was a real paradise for indigenous people, which our civilization has turned into a virtual one. It has all changed into a big commercial and tourist attraction, and the descendants of the Guarani have become producers and vendors of souvenirs. Iguazu in the Guarani language means big water. A lot of water will pass before we understand that a nature-friendly existence was a primary human constellation. Thanks to Branca, the shaman woman, their language, myths, and legends will stay with us. Her favorite Arab proverb says, "If you can't be a star in the sky, be a light on earth."